Peace. Welcome to another episode of More Than a Coincidence, which is a new series underneath the umbrella of my podcast, which is called, of course, the Ruling Class Podcast, as those of you who have been here would already know. For those of you who are new, welcome, and I ask that you like, share, and please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and check out some of my older content as well. I post videos weekly and work very hard on these videos to bring forth the truth. When you subscribe, comment, and share the material, it really helps the page a lot, but it also encourages me to keep working hard. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you. I have questions. Is it more than a coincidence that the holiday that we call New Year's falls within the month of January, which is named after an ancient Roman deity? Is it more than a coincidence that New Year's Day is actually not the beginning of a quote-unquote new year, according to many historians? Is it more than a coincidence that the holiday that we call New Year's Day has been associated to dark and sinister origins? Join me in this episode as we both cover and uncover the open secret about the holiday we all know as New Year's. New Year's Day is, like several other holidays, a public or federal holiday that most people recognize as the very first day of a new year. Being that it's a federal holiday, most businesses and schools are closed. This day is usually celebrated annually on the evening of December 31st or New Year's Eve, leading into the early hours of January 1st, filled with fireworks, parties, special events, parades, gifts, and more. The most iconic association with New Year's Day may be millions of people watching the traditional dropping of a giant 12,000-pound ball in New York City at Times Square at midnight. But what if I told you there's a history, open secret, and so-called element of New Year's Day that you may or may not know that has a much more darker and sinister meaning from what we've been told? Let's start with the origin of New Year's Day. Many people don't even know that over the past centuries, the Roman calendar is what was commonly used and is where the New Year's Day originated from, and the calendar eventually fell out of sync with the sun, and in 46 BC, the Emperor Julius Caesar decided to solve the problem by consulting with the most prominent astronomers and mathematicians of his time. He introduced the Julian calendar, which closely resembles the more modern Gregorian calendar that most countries, including the United States, use today. As part of his reform, Caesar instituted January 1st, the day we consider as New Year's Day, as the first day of the year, partly to honor Janus, the Roman god of beginnings, gates, transition, mornings, time, duality, doorways, passages, and endings, whose two faces allowed him to look back into the past and forward into the future. That's where you get the month's namesake, which is January, of course. Romans celebrated by offering sacrifices to Janus, exchanging gifts with one another, decorating their homes with laurel branches, and attending raucous, chaotic, and hectic parties. The public sacrifices and offerings were said to be given to Janus before any other deity. In fact, there is evidence that Janus was worshipped long before many of the other Roman gods, dating all the way back to the time of Romulus, the founder and first ruler of Rome. In ancient Rome, the gates of Janus's temple were only closed in times of peace, which didn't happen very often, by the way. However, the Romans actually did not give him ownership of the entire month, only New Year's Day. That is why he is always depicted as having two heads, facing in opposite direction. This is sometimes depicted as a younger man on one side and an older man with a beard. Sometimes this is depicted as a man on one side and a woman on the other side. However, the idea of two faces on one body is supposed to symbolize him as quote-unquote two-faced, which has always had a negative connotation because this term is commonly associated with deceiving, untrustworthy people who have two different personalities. After New Year's Eve, festivities, that's how many of us feel when we wake up on the 1st of January. because a lot of people irresponsibly make empty promises that they don't keep for the sake of the moment. For many people watching right now, you may not even know who or what I'm talking about. But this is exactly my point. While we celebrate holidays with the basic or surface level of understanding, there are many things that are associated with these quote-unquote holidays that we don't even realize that we are partaking in. One of the biggest red flags about New Year's Day is that many of our ancestors and even some cultures still today believe that the New Year's Day is not even during the beginning of January. Instead, due to the way in which the Earth revolves around its orbit and the times when the axis reaches its midpoint, where neither the North or South poles are tilted towards the sun, many believe the quote-unquote New Year begins on the vernal or spring equinox, which is the first day of spring on March 20th. So why do we celebrate and consider January 1st the start of a new year? The biggest association with New Year's Day may be the traditional quote-unquote New Year's resolution, which is when people would make these simple promises to family, friends, and or themselves to change or do something different in the new year. However, the origin of this traditional practice was actually said to have first caught on among the ancient Babylonians, who made promises in order to earn the favor of their gods and start the year off on the right foot. And who were the Babylonians? They were the people of a city called Babylon, which was known to be one of the largest cities that had prominent, immaculate, and enormous walls, palaces, and temples. Their king was somebody who was mentioned within the Bible, actually, a man by the name of Nimrod. King Nimrod is coined by many historians to be the starters of turning people away from the God of the Bible and instead practicing pagan sun god worship. Speaking of pagan sun god worship, have you seen my last video about the open secret about Christmas? I cover the pagan origins of Christmas, the perverted nature of Santa Claus, including the idea of sitting children in his lap, and even the lie that is associated or somehow connected to Jesus or his birthday. If you have not checked it out, please go do so. Well, you may say, well, what's the big deal? So what, the holiday is said to be associated or originated from ancient deities. I don't believe in those deities. I do it for fun or because I enjoy the moment. It's quote unquote tradition. You may be right. Just because something is tradition, though, does not make it right and or innocent in nature. But the real question is, are you partaking in these ancient rituals unknowingly honoring these gods? Am I asking you to not celebrate New Year's Day? Well, the Bible says plain, Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 2, learn not the way of the heathen. That's what the Bible says. What I am not saying is that everything about New Year's Day is necessarily rooted in evil, satanic, or ungodly rituals. But the origins of this holiday is, you don't have to wait until January 1st to make promises to yourself or anyone else either. So why do it on January 1st just because it's a popular trend? This limits people to only feeling like that's the best time in life to make resolutions that actually matter the most. It's not. I challenge anyone out there to just question their behavior and why it is that they are partaking in certain traditions. This last portion is for those who may question the things that have been said within this video, which is natural. Maybe you are on the edge, or maybe you consider me as a quote unquote conspiracy theorist and or consider this as quote unquote conspiracy theories. This game is called No, I Don't Know. This simply means that no matter what I ask, the answer you give cannot be the words, I don't know, right? The challenge here is for you to answer with a better alternative than what I have presented here in the video. Make sense? Perfect. First question. If New Year's Day is so innocent, why is it celebrated during a time when many believe that it's not even the quote-unquote natural start of a new year? Is it more than a coincidence that it was designed for many people to wait specifically for New Year's Day to make quote-unquote resolutions and many times false promises? Is it more than a coincidence that New Year's Day falls within the month of January and has ties to the ancient deity Janus that many people made public sacrifices and offerings to? Are all of these things just a coincidence? I don't believe it is. I'd like to say thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment what or who you would like me to make a video on next. I believe it is not only my responsibility, but many others' responsibility to unapologetically raise awareness and speak truth to light to the best of our ability, despite how many people may feel about it. If you notice evil and choose to not speak on it, please understand that this makes you a part of the problem and not the solution, respectfully. There is no in between. All praise be to the Most High. The truth is all that there is, and that's not a coincidence. I have questions. Do you?